Hi, my name is Dahlia, freelance editor and aspiring author, and today I'm here to show you how I developmentally analyze and edit my own books. So first of all, I want to address why you should self-edit your books. Typically, there are 3 reasons that I give my clients. Number 1, your future edits will probably be cheaper if your work is of a higher quality. Number 2, to learn more about your chosen language and the structure. If you research what it takes to make a good novel, then you're well on your way to already giving your audience what they want. And number 3, when you know your story well, writing a blurb or a synopsis are very easy. Generally, the way to get you to know your novel is to developmentally analyze it. Because today's topic is about developmentally editing or analyzing your work, I want to show you my favorite book on the subject. Scott Norton's Developmental Editing is a great sort of information piece, non-fiction information piece for writers, whether they be fiction writers or non-fiction writers. This could help with your memoir, it can help with your dissertation or your thesis, and it can also help with your novel. There are many editing books that I really enjoy and would really recommend, so if you guys want to see a video on that, please drop a comment below. Before we get started, I just want to add a disclaimer. This is my process, and while it works for me, it may not work for you. However, if you're on the lookout for a new process, this one might work for you as well. Another disclaimer, I tend to developmentally analyze my work the way I would developmentally analyze my clients' work. So my process has come from what I learned in the industry. Before I even get around to editing, first I have to write the first draft. This takes me months. I spend months learning about the structure of the chosen genre or the story, getting to know the structure that I want in my story. I research and I outline and re-outline a bunch of times. I have so many different outlining methods that I use in order to produce the work that I have at the end. And I promise that one day very soon I will share my outlining process with you. So after completing the first draft, I set it aside for 6 months at a minimum. I take this time to make Pinterest boards for my character or my story, or to potentially re-outline, make notes on things I want to add, and I even like to make mock covers. So while I do think about my book in the meantime, I don't touch it. And after the grueling 6 months has passed, I typically go over it with an analytical eye. This is why I call it the developmental analysis. Currently, my series Bible is just under 15,000 words. I like to start with fun things, like the mock cover that I made. And then I move on to notes of the novel, which tend to include the tagline, the elevator pitch or the log line, the blurb, and the synopsis. And then the rest of my series Bible is filled with every single character that has been important enough to have a mention. This includes little things like security guards or someone who happened to be a member of something. Whoever my main characters or my characters come into contact with, that is who I add in, just so I know all the characters and who I can take out and maybe give them a role, a secondary role, especially because I write dystopian, so anyone could have a role. You can't trust anyone. I then go through and describe the settings, things that will help me to write that setting all throughout the entire series or the novel or whatever I'm writing. So I'm using the Dominion as an example right now, and this is my dystopian novel. So I've got rebels, I have the Dominion, which are the people who run certain compounds that were formed after World War III in order to protect people. But while they started off as something innocent and something very helpful, they all become evil, and that's what's happened to the Dominion. Hence why we have the story starting at this point. So I call it an analysis because I like to go through the important plot points that I find throughout the story. They could be important, or they could be plot points that I want to add that will become important. And then of course, just as important, we have subplots, and I have a massive list of world building topics like the units within the world, like the jobs that people can have, how they celebrate things, how they nourish themselves, what sort of food that they eat, just so that I know what I have to come up with. So if they have, say in the Dominion, they've got lavender biscuits, this means that they have to grow and tend lavender. And then I move on to things like the flora and the fauna. I have notes down the bottom of my series Bibles that are, say, scenes to add, general notes that I have to place in certain areas. In the Dominion, I have what was life like before the Dominion and what happened to make the world the way it is. I also have a layout of the compound so that I can then draw a map and know where everything is, and so I can keep it consistent, and so I know how long it takes to get to a certain place and that sort of information. Because the Dominion has Christian elements, I have used passages from the Bible in the story. So I also have noted down the passages used in the story as well, just so that if I say Moses parted the water and that's used as an example, a theme, or a symbol, I can then reiterate it and keep bringing it up in certain ways all throughout the novel. So currently my series Bible stands at 40 pages. This is pretty particular. Not everyone is this particular when creating a series Bible. I think it's important when building a world and knowing what everyone looks like, because sometimes I forget that someone has a certain piercing and then I don't write it in, and my readers are then confused as to why this person had a piercing at the start and now they don't. The first pass over my first draft normally comes in the form of highlighters. I love the use of highlighters and the categorization. So for the Dominion, they each have their own specific use, obviously. We have pink for the romantic subplot and also for romantic other happenings throughout the novel. I've got orange for things to remove, like any scenes or any ideas that I'm not okay with anymore or that I want removed. There's been a few of those. I was playing around with a few concepts and I don't really like them anymore, so they're cut now. I have the vibrant green for things that I really should remember throughout the entirety of the novel. The pale pink goes towards the colour of the rebels, any rebel information or rebel plans or rebel people or what they're doing or what the Dominion think of the rebels. The pale green is all world building tips, anything that could help me remotely in the future, anything that I may have to note down a question for, or, as is what happens, an answer to. I've used the purple for people's names and their appearances and specific details about them, like say if they work in a certain area, it goes under purple. And I've used yellow for the important plot points because this is bright and it stands out and I can't miss it throughout the entirety of the manuscript. But this all depends on whether or not you want to print your manuscript out or you don't. I like to print mine out. I print out a hard copy just so that I can go through it, and with a more specific eye. On the computer you can miss a lot of things, and also it's a lot of screen time that I want to avoid. I don't know if you can hear that, but there is thunder in the background. We're having a miserable day in Australia. Hopefully the rain helps with the fires, so I apologize in advance if it is disturbing in any way. The second pass involves sticky notes. I use green for the rebels. I've used orange to note down the different beats in each different outlining method that I've used. I've used yellow to correlate with the important plot points just so I know exactly where they are throughout the novel. And of course I've used pink for the romance. For anything to do with romance, any questions that I have, it's pink. And along with that, I make a tremendous amount of notes all throughout the entirety of the manuscript. So once I've gone through with the highlighters and with my sticky notes, I make sure that all the information within my series Bible helps in some way to make the novel better. I use the information in my series Bible to then outline and re-outline and re-outline again. But throughout this process, because it is the developmental edits, I do try and focus on the bigger picture items. Sometimes I'll note down throughout that, oh, this is a passage that I really like. I like the way this is written. So once I've gone over my manuscript 3 to 4, sometimes 6 times, then I decide to start working on a proper outline, exactly how everything will work in the novel. And then once I think I have a cohesive structure and all the arcs are working really well together and intertwining well, then that's when I decide that I can start rewriting the novel. And typically with the second rewrite, the novel tends to be much better. So big picture items aren't as relevant, and then I can move on to line and copy editing. So that concludes this video on how I developmentally analyze my own manuscripts. If you want to know more about me or my life or my work or my services, please check the links below. If you have a question or want to see a future topic or a video on anything, please drop a comment as well. If you like this video, remember to subscribe and hit that little bell if you want to be notified. And let me know in the comments below if you like to developmentally analyze or edit your own books. Do you have a series Bible? What sort of genre do you write in? And do you enjoy the process of editing? Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you next time. Bye.